So let's go back to chapter 5. And get back into chatting about elasticity. And remember that really what we're looking at when we're talking about elasticity is really trying to analyze the money in aspect of business. How are we trying to manipulate demand to get the most revenue from our sales? Okay? So, let's say, let's keep the numbers easier. Screw this 86. Let's go with 80. 30, we're going to buy 50. 40, we are going to go buy 20. And if we raise the price to 50, we're only going to buy 10. Okay, so what I want you to be able to do is to tell me what is the elasticity between these price points. All right? So find elasticity between $10 and $20, $20 and $30, $30 and $40, and $40 and $50. And I don't want to find the value of E, okay? That, again, that we covered last time. Do it once, go through what the book does, follow its directions, and go through it. What I'm going to ask you is, between these price points, tell me, am I elastic, inelastic, or unitary? All right? That's all I want to know. Okay. Now, the way you guys are going to go about doing this is by using what I've called the total revenue approach. Because, again, that's what we're trying to tie this to, is to revenue, money earned or money collected. And, again, the way you figure out what revenue is when you're doing business is take the price of your goods and multiply by how many of them you sold. So if you sold at $10 and you sold 100 of them, you collected $1,000. If you set the price to 20 and sold 80 of them, you sold $1,600 worth of goods. If you set the price to 30 and sold 50, 1,500. 40 and 20, 510. Okay. So that's as deep as the math I really want you to be able to do. Multiply two numbers. Okay? Now, the key here, determining what our elasticity is, right? Again, remember that elastic is stretchy. Things can go in opposite directions. When things are inelastic, like a piece of wood, when you drag one end of a piece of wood, what's eventually going to happen to the other end? It's going to come along and move in the same direction. Okay? So, when the price goes from $10 to $20, what did it do? It went up. So our price rose. What happened to our total revenue? It also went up. If both of these are the same sign, that means that they are going together. That means they are inelastic, right? So you would tell me that between $10 and $20, I'm inelastic. And it's purely because when this went up, this also went up. So, when the price went from $20 to $30, what happened to the price? What happened to total revenue this time? Went down. So it is switched. We have become elastic. because these two signs are the different. Right? One's going one way, the other is going the other. From $30 to $40, we are still going up. Total revenue, going down. If they're still opposite, we are still elastic. Last time, and hopefully you've seen the pattern by now, the price went up from $40 to $50. Total revenue, down. We're still elastic. Okay? That's all the more you need to do to determine elasticity. All right. To be unitary, we would have to have something where the price, this total revenue doesn't change. So like if this had been 50, so 20 times 50 would have been 1,000. When the value of your total revenue doesn't change, that's when you're unitary. All right, now, this is all well and good. What the hell does it mean? The key behind this remember, when you're dealing with this price and quantity table, this is often called a demand schedule. So what we're really doing when we're analyzing elasticity using this total revenue approach is what we're doing is analyzing how is our demand looking? What does it look like? All right? So when our demand is inelastic, a change in price does not change quantity very much. So things like gasoline, right? When the price of gas shoots from $2.50 up to $3.20, we buy less gas, but do we buy a lot less gas? No. So my question to you is, what does the demand for gasoline look like if you were to draw it? Okay? And what it's saying is that there can be a big price change. So here's $2, here's $3.20. So a relatively big price change. But what we're saying is that quantity, when the price goes up, the quantity still goes down, but it just doesn't go down as much. So at $2.50, you may buy 15 gallons a week. At $3.20, you're going to buy less because you're going to try and conserve, but you can't buy 5 gallons a week, right? I mean, you still got to get to work every day, and you still got to take the kids to soccer, and you still got to, run your errands, go see the doctor, all that other kind of business. So, but maybe you go down to 13 gallons a week. And when I connect those 2 points, what kind of a line do I make? Exactly.
This is when your demand line gets slanted.
Exactly. The more inelastic your demand is, the steeper your demand curve becomes. Because big changes in price only make little changes in quantity. And it's very sad. Again, this is not a good or a bad thing. It's just a thing, right? So more inelastic equals steeper demand. So guess what happens when I flatten out my demand? It gets more elastic, right? So if you think of something as being elastic, it becomes flatter. And here, if you were to say make a small price change in something, for simplicity's sake, let's suppose that we had $2 down here, and we just lowered the price by 10 cents. I didn't even make my line big enough. What's the change in quantity because we lowered the price 10 cents? A big, huge difference in the change in quantity. So small change in price, big change in quantity, right? Sorry. More elastic equals flatter demand. So one of the things that I may do on a quiz is put 3 lines that look like demand curves on a graph and ask you which one is the most inelastic, or which one is the most elastic, or something along those lines. Compare the 2 lines, right? So tell me that this line is more inelastic than this line because it's steeper. And be able to switch your brain around and go in reverse. And tell me that this line is more elastic than that line because it's flatter. All right? So flatter, elastic, steeper, inelastic, and be able to go either way, right? Good bet that it will be. All right, now, so what happens when we get a little carried away with our demand, right? So suppose we're making our demand more inelastic, right? What happens if we reach the true peak? Suppose this is our demand. It's straight up and down. It's as steep as it can be. Not quite. We'll talk a little bit about unitary. But so this, from here to here, we're making it more inelastic. So if we're we're making it more steep, right? It's as inelastic as it can get. And what that means is that this is what economists call perfectly inelastic. So perfect inelasticity is a product whose demand is straight up and down. Basically what it means is that at any price you are going to buy this much of it, period. This would be the type of thing that if you have to have it, you're going to pay whatever price it takes. So perfect inelasticity is stuff like medicines, right? Where if you don't get them, you're dead, right? So if those medicines cost $10 a pill, you pay $10 a pill. If they cost $50 a pill, you pay $50 a pill. If they cost $1 million a pill, you pay $1 million a pill. And if you can't, that's what perfect inelasticity is. It's pretty close to perfect inelasticity, except that, yeah, you can't live without it. You got to be able to buy some of it, but you could potentially buy less than a certain amount, right? I mean, you could potentially live on less oxygen. You just would be a lot slower. You'd be a lot less in shape, right? Right, yeah, but it's one of those things where it literally has to be you have it or you don't. All right, now, that's one extreme. Guess what? Hmm? For sellers? Yeah. Usually, yeah. No, well, I mean, that's it. It's HIV medicine, right? I mean.
Well, okay, but then they go buy generic stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, but if there's a patent out there and there's no generic yet. Well, if there was only one maker of them, yes. True. It's more inelastic, but is it perfectly? There's very few things that are truly perfectly inelastic, because eventually, if you make something that's perfectly inelastic, like the first guy who came up with Viagra, right? I mean, some guys gotta have it, right? I mean, you're gonna be dead if you don't. And they were the only maker of it, right? Until their patent died, and then there started to be competition. But I mean, that's the same with the HIV drugs. When they first came out, in order to, when Magic Johnson first got diagnosed with HIV, I mean, he was paying $8,000 a pill for his HIV medicine. He wasn't getting subsidized by the government because he had too much money. Was he going to pay? Was he going to say, no, $8,000 is too much for this? No, he's going to dig into his coffers and say, okay, here's your $8,000. Of course, at the same time, what was he doing? He was funding the generics to get them to make it, but the people who made the HIV medicine, they had 10 years of a patent that they had to have a monopoly on it, and if you didn't get it, you were dead. Oh, that's pretty damn close, right? Now, what's the other extreme? If I can have one that's going straight up and down, totally elastic. This is called perfectly elastic. And this is a product where if you sell it at that price, you can sell however much of it you want. Doesn't matter. But if you try and sell it for a penny, a half a penny, a 32nd of a penny more than that price, you will sell nothing. Again, you're the maker of it in this particular instance, right? So you're looking at a market where when you make it, when you go to sell it, you can sell as much as you want as long as you sell it at this price. If you try and sell it for any bit more, they'll say no. I won't buy any. Can you think of a product that works like that? That's absolutely right. This is exactly why gas stations always tend to have the same price that are right next to each other, right? Because technically they're competitors, right? And if there's 1 penny higher, are you going to take a right instead of a left? Oh. Yeah, I'm assuming that there's some, well, what gas stations have done is they've gotten smarter, right? They've created gas cards where you get a 5% rebate if you come here, so then they raise their prices 5%. And again, we'll get to that stuff, kind of stuff later. But the best example of this stuff, folks, soybeans. Oh, no, not even Walmart still has competitors. True, but if those guys can find someone else to, if they can find someone else to buy it, they'll do it.
Theoretically, they're going along with this philosophy.
True, it's close. It's very close. But a better example, if you'll pardon me, is commodities. Suppose you were a farmer and you're growing soybeans. You've got 2,000 acres of soybeans, so you grow 9,000 bushels of soybeans. When you grab your soybeans, you harvest them, and you take them to the grain silo to sell them, how much are they going to pay you for your soybeans? Whatever the market price is. If you sell them 8,000 bushels, you get 8,000 times the price. If you sell them 1 bushel, you get that price. No matter what the price is that day, whammo. That's the price. And you can sell as much as you want, right? You could sell thousands of bushels to that grain silo. They don't give a crap, right? They're like, I'm just going to put it in with all the other ones. Doesn't matter so much. Sure, if you've got 60,000 bushels of soybeans, I'll buy them all. Write you a check for it, and they'll throw it in the bin, and it'll go out to wherever it goes. 60,000, 6. Doesn't matter. Commodities often have a very close to perfectly elastic demand, just because there's so many other people making them, right? I mean, think about feed corn, right? Where is feed corn grown in the world? Everywhere, right? It grows in China, they grow it in Russia, they grow it in Australia, they grow it in Brazil, they grow it in Egypt, okay? I mean, one of Egypt's bigger crops is actually corn. Seems weird, but they actually do. Right? So perfectly elastic. But again, I want you to be able to go through the gamut, right? So perfectly elastic, mostly elastic, inelastic, perfectly inelastic. So from 9 to 12, right? For those of you who still remember what a clock is. You float from elastic all the way up to inelastic. All right. And that's good stuff. And again, remember what it means, right? When your demand is inelastic, if you raise the price, you make more money. So whenever a company notices that their demand is inelastic, what are they going to do? Oh, God, yes, constantly, right? And the whole point is that they're going to keep raising their price until they reach one of these elastic zones, right? And this is why prices never go down, folks, or very rarely go down. Because mostly what businesses do is they look at their demand schedules and say, am I inelastic? Yes, keep raising the price. As soon as they raise the price and total revenue goes down, that's where they stop. Because then they've hit the elastic range, and that's basically where they want to be. Because raising the price when you're elastic makes your total revenue go down. And usually that's bad because you want to make as much money as you can. Now, again, wait for it when we talk about profit, but that's the first step to our analysis. All right. Oh, good, we got time.
The government comes in. The government comes in and they buy a whole bunch of commodities, but they buy it at a certain price. What is that some kind of a
It won't do anything to the market.
to keep the price?
Doesn't actually work.
That's their idea.
Conceptually, well, usually when the government is coming in and
From going up, like let's say corn.
oh, they would love it if corn prices went up. They love it when corn prices go up.
Well,
Cheese.
that's a big amount.
True.
And the government, they get a lot of it
Right. Well, that's to try and save the small cheese farmer, right? Remember, that's those price floors that they're setting.
to do with really trying to stabilize the price in the market.
For a country to able to stabilize the price in a market would require trillions of dollars. Sometimes I wonder if we are, but usually in those commodity markets, I mean, the true volume of sales is such that one country, even as big as we are, we couldn't affect it. I mean, the amount of money that changes hands every day in the commodities market, like corn, soybeans, even pork and beef, I mean, it's in the billions every day.
They're buying a lot of it, and a lot of it they just give away.
Well, yeah, yeah. That's more because we consider ourselves the farmer of the world and that we're trying to save everyone because we're that way. Neither here nor there. All right, so what are the factors that make a product more or less elastic? All right? I mean, why is gasoline more inelastic, but, hamburgers are more elastic? Well, what's the difference between the two of them? Okay, very good. The very first example, and the number one reason, right? More substitutes equals more elastic. In other words, when they raise the price, do you have an alternative that you can go buy? If you do, then when they raise the price, the amount that you buy less is a bigger amount, hence you're more elastic. So price changes when you have lots of substitutes, you're elastic. And that's exactly why gas is considered an inelastic product, because if they raise the price of gas, can we go buy a different type of fuel to put in our car? Yeah, I mean, we can try one of those E85 things we'll put on our car, or maybe we'll buy an electric car, right? But can you do that right? Diesel's just as bad as regular gas right now. All right, so what else does it, all right? Substitute, this is by far the number one reason, though, folks. I mean, this is the biggest, right? When you have substitutes, you are more elastic. And the more substitutes you have, the more elastic you become. It tends to be the more competition there is, what's the price that all the competitors charge? All roughly the same, right? I mean, there may be some minor differences, but basically they're all roughly the same. Once you start getting less substitutes, then it starts to be a little bit more fluctuating. Now, what else drives it? Time. Why does time drive? How long have gas prices been above $3 a gallon? 3-4 years. And it never goes back down, right? They put it back. I mean, yeah, it was 275, 280 back in 2006, 2007. It's been 4 or 5 years. What's been happening steadily as gas prices have stayed higher and higher and higher? I mean, they fluctuated to try and make it look like they haven't really raised the price. But the fact is that the gas prices have been high for quite a while. What car has seen the greatest increase in sales since the price of gas has been above $3 a gallon? Hybrid cars, right? So what are we doing when we're buying these hybrid cars when we're given time to adjust to a high price? We're saying, oh, here's a substitute. Electricity is a substitute for my gas. As long as the price of gas stays high for long periods of time, hybrid sales go up. We will buy the substitutes, right? This is why the gas companies really, really, really would like gas to drop below $3 for a few months, maybe even a year. Because if all of our prices of gas all of a sudden drops down to $2.50 for a while, what do we all think when it comes time for us to buy a new car?
We don't need to get a hybrid.
We don't need a hybrid. I'm going to go out and buy a Exxon Valdez, right? You know one of those big, huge Suburbans, right? I mean, gets 3 gallons to the mile or something like that, or whatever. Oh, is that how it works? But the longer we have increased price, right? The more time price is high, the more elastic our demand. Because we will invent substitutes, right? We will come up with a way to generate motion without using petrol. We will say, let's use electricity. Let's use, hydrogen instead, right? They've started to come up with these hydrogen carbon batteries, right, that are hydrogen engines even. Of course, carrying around hydrogen in the back of your car is a little scary, but one of the most flammable products in the world. But given price of gas at $3.50 a gallon, we're going to go for it. Need. Think about the cancer drugs that are out there, right? Think about diabetes pills. The more you need it, the more inelastic it is, right? Because the more you need it, the more you're going to pay the higher price if that's the only thing that's out there, right? And a lot of times, if the non-generic price goes up, what happens to the generic price? It goes up with it, right? I mean, it's always, a certain amount lower so that you'll still buy it. But if one goes up, buddy, the pal's going to go along for the ride, right? So here, the less you need it, the more elastic it is. So I'm trying to give you all of these in terms of elastic instead of inelastic. I'll switch that in a second. Okay, and the last one that I like to use, just because it's a cool word, and it's more generic, or abstract anyways, is the breadth of definition. What is breadth? Yeah, it's the scope. How widely or how broadly are we defining our product, right? So think of it in this terms, right? Food. How elastic is food? Just food in general, where we grouped all food together. It's inelastic. Why?
Because we need it.
Because we're dead if we don't have it, right? I mean, well, but now if we start to narrow our vision, if we start to become less broad, so let's talk about meat. As we get narrower, meat, do we have to have meat?
No.
No, and we can find substitutes, right? We could eat tofu, we could eat Okay, so maybe we haven't gone narrowly enough yet for you. Let's go into seafood, right? What happens if we define it as just seafood, or we define it as just shark, or if we, exactly, we get narrower and narrower and narrower. The more narrower we define it, the more generic we become, the more elastic we are. So the narrower our definition is, our product is, the more elastic we are. So as you start to broaden your scope, it becomes more and more inelastic, right? If you talk about vegetables in general, those are relatively inelastic. But once you start like lima beans, which are utterly and completely disgusting, now it's really elastic, and you will substitute anything in order to not have to eat lima beans.
What if it came down to the only thing left on earth to eat was lima?
That's tough. I'm out of here, baby. Give me the black pill. I'm done. All right, so be able to tell me what types of products are more elastic and what types of products are more inelastic because of these definitions.
Would finite resources, where would that fit in?
Finite resources? What do you mean by that?
Like with the oil industry, we only have so much fossil fuels, and eventually we will run out. There's no way to get more of them. So obviously the more we use,
The more we're not going to have later on. That's more along the lines of future price expectation. So if you know that eventually you're going to run out, what do you think is eventually going to happen to the price? That's how I would analyze it. That may not, other economists may analyze that in a different fashion, just so that you know. That's a pretty specific question to a generic topic. Again, if you wanted to get into details, we could talk about that kind of stuff, but in here, let's not worry too much about that. All right, so, so let's do a quick question. How much time? Yeah, we got some. Okay, so which of these is most elastic? Let's go with water. Gas. Fast food. Or cancer medication. Why? We need water. We need it? I don't need it. I don't need it to live. So why is gas more inelastic? Use one of. There aren't a whole lot of substitutes. Good. Fast food?
there are much more substitutes.
Lots and lots of substitutes for it. Cancer medication? Not a whole lot of substitutes, and we need it a lot more. So it's perfectly okay to just say fast food, but true, yeah, exactly, right? Because if you don't have cancer, do you need cancer medication? No. But it would be really nice to have it out there because maybe one of your family members does, or maybe one of your friends does, or maybe even one of your acquaintances does, and you would rather not have them die. True. If I said food in general, then it becomes a hard question.
Well, if you think about it, water is the most elastic because you can get it pretty much anywhere for free.
Been to California lately?
You can get seawater for free. Just go out to the...
You can get ocean water for free, but you can't get seawater for free in California. Not anymore. Their water prices are doubling right now.
You can just go to a natural resource and fill your bucket up with water.
As long as that natural resource is not on private property and not on government property, yes. Right now, if you take If you take water out of like Yellowstone in California, you'll get arrested. And if you go into somebody's property and take water out of the river, folks, they're going to shoot you. Especially in California. Most of the people who own the rivers are sitting there just going, they can't wait. There's like 3 or 4 major cities in southeastern California that they expect water to be out in about 100 days of all of their reservoirs. I mean, guess what's going to happen to the price of water then? Think about going to the grocery store and buying a bottle of water. It cost you 50 cents. Now it's going to cost you $5, right? Scary stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those where the amount of supply could be a factor in this. But, all right, so homework. I have the quizzes. The Chapter 3 stuff I already gave you back. The Chapter 4 homework is, of course, sitting on my table at home, which doesn't help you a lot. Oh, the Chapter 3 stuff is sitting at home on my kitchen table, so sorry about that. So for Chapter 5, let's do numbers. Oh, number 4 is the one where please calculate the coefficient. So you have to do it 4 times. The fraction over a fraction stuff. Page 109. 4, 6, and 8. For number 4, calculate that value of E. So do the whole fraction divided by a fraction thing, that Q2 minus Q1 over Q2 plus Q1. That's the only time you will ever have to do that. All right. Oh, if you want your quiz, I have it here. A couple of 6. Quizzes are always 6. Frederick. Shannon, right? Help me.
Oh, Aaron.
Aaron? Okay. Colin, right? Matt Squiggle. Dwayne? Dwayne, pass that to Dwayne. Mark. Wait. Don't tell me. Ashley? Okay. And Carissa, right? Yep. Okay. That is you. And Nicole. David, Vince, no, Cody. All right. I would ask you to please go over this quiz and make sure that you know how to properly answer the question now after our little mini review. And again, I apologize for not having the homework with me. We'll go over it on Wednesday, though. Let's see, so Dwayne was here, Amanda, Colin, Carissa was here, Kiana was here, Ashley, no Adam again, Mark, Shannon, Matt, Nicole, no David, Aaron, Vince. Did Vince flee? He was over here. Oh, did I turn that off, Carissa?
I don't think so.
Okay. Little commentary at the end. Oh, somebody got it off. Okay, cool.